Hi everybody, my name is Jo and I love to read. Today I'm going to be doing my March and April 2022 reading wrap up. I'm coming to you guys today from obviously a very different backdrop to what I usually do. I can't actually get to my bookshelves at the moment. Renovations. The ironic thing about it is that I'm filming this wrap up in like the 9th of May is when I'm filming it, and I can't actually get to the books that I read because my shelf is behind so much other clutter and furniture that we can't currently put back out because of renovations. So I'm going to have lots of lovely pictures up here to show you guys the covers of the books that I'm reading, but I really needed to do this wrap up now because it kept getting later and later and later. I'm really enjoying doing the 2-month wrap ups together, but I needed to get it done because otherwise if I didn't stop and do something, if I waited until I had the right background, it wasn't going to get done, and then I'm going to have the baby and it certainly is probably not going to get done then. So here we are today, and thank you so much for sticking around and welcome to my wrap up. The first book that I finished in these 2 months is Midnight Sun by Meyer. This is Twilight from Edward's point of view, something that has long been awaited in the Twilight universe. If you guys don't know the background behind that, Meyer was writing this like 10 or so years ago, pretty much after all the movies came out, and she lent it to someone, to like a trusted person, to read it, and that person leaked it, and that made her very angry, which I totally understand because something that was supposed to be private and personal was pushed out into the universe before it was ready, and she decided not to continue writing it. But finally, all these years later, she has done it. I'm pretty sure it was released last year. This is by no means a new release. Like pretty much everything that I read it a lot slower than, or I'm in the middle of other things than what a lot of people are. I don't keep up a lot with new releases. It's just what sounds interesting to me. But I finally ended up reading this book because I absolutely loved Twilight back in the day when it was out, and I was definitely interested to read it from Edward's perspective. I just had a look on StoryGraph to see what I rated it, and I didn't actually give it a rating. I don't know what I would, I don't know, maybe like a 3.75 sounds pretty good. It was really easy to read. That's probably one of the best things about Meyer's writing, is that she is just so easy to read and breeze through. It's probably a bit chunkier of a book for my taste than what it felt like it needed to be. Edward had a lot of thoughts, like a lot of thoughts, and it was probably double the size of Twilight, which I kind of get. Meyer's proven herself as an author. She's allowed to write bigger books that people will hopefully enjoy, but for me I just felt like it was just a bit longer than what it needed to be, particularly around the middle-ish part of the plot, but it was sort of more towards the third quarter of the book was when it was getting a little bit slower and harder for me to focus and to read. But ultimately I'm really glad that I did actually read it. It was really interesting. The start of the book was really good. It was really good. There was more depth to it than I actually thought it was going to be. It's absolutely a story about being afraid to show the person that you love who you really are, and wanting them to know you in all of your sides, and wanting to know everything about you, but being absolutely terrified that they're not going to accept you. So I found that depth very surprising, to be honest, that there was that depth in there, but very glad that it was, because it kept the start of the book really interesting. There are a couple of weird things about Edward's character that I don't super like. He kept on at the start referring to Bella as the girl, which just made me, the tone that he did it just kept on reminding me that he's like this 100-year-old man, which he is. But it's weird when you think about him, like we're supposed to be thinking about him in romantic terms, and I don't want to continuously be reminded that he's actually 100 years old. And it just makes me think, if the vampires actually aged the way that humans do, like looks wise, there would be no story. It just, that's my opinion, because the world is quite shallow that way. Even looking into that a little bit deeper now that I've said that, is that Edward wouldn't be going to school. The only way that he would be going to school is if he was a teacher, but then he'd be looking pretty decrepit by this point. I would hate to think what a 1,000-year-old vampire would look like if they aged the same way in the looks as the humans do. But it was just one of these weird things where he kept going, the girl did this and the girl did that, and I'm like, can't you just call her Bella? Because it just, I don't want to think that you're an old dude when we're supposed to be romantically thinking about you. I also think that Edward needed to get a life before Bella. I liked getting the extra insights into the Cullens because we got to see what projects they were working on when they weren't at school, how they filled their time, which was really interesting to me. But I don't know that Edward had that much of a life because he has his curse or gift, or however you want to think about it, of his mind reading. He seemed very, very bored with life, with humans, with everything. But I struggle to think that in all of his time on Earth, he didn't find another worthwhile human to think about or to hear their thoughts, because he just, and I do get it, the fact that a lot of people wouldn't have a lot of pure thoughts, and I think that's a lot of what he's been exposed to. I just can't believe that he never found someone else selfless, because he talks a lot about Bella being selfless because she was willing to move to another town that made her unhappy so that her mum could travel on the road with her new partner. And I can't think that that's the most selfless thing that he has heard someone do. I get that he can't read her thoughts, and so that's like quite interesting for him. She's a bit of a mystery for him. But I just can't believe that there is not someone that Edward hasn't found in his like entire existence, like some other human that is selfless enough to be worth just caring about, I guess. Like, the impression that I got with Edward is that he just thinks that all humans are vapid, vain, horrible things. And then it just makes me think, well, then why do you care so much about blending in and about saving their lives and not killing them? I just don't understand. If he just doesn't seem to have a lot of, like, he's got respect for human life and the fact that he doesn't want to kill them and like feed on them. But then I also kind of feel like, but where does that respect come from? Because I don't understand what he values about human life, aside from the fact that it's human life, because he doesn't seem to think that any other human's thoughts and actions and lives are worthwhile until Bella comes in. There were some creepy moments, like when Edward was crossing the privacy violation of going into Bella's room while she was asleep. That was a bit weird, but skipping past that, I still enjoyed the romance. That was still good. When it kind of slowed down in the middle, it was really hard to push through for a bit, and it was only because I knew that the story was about to pick up and get towards the climax that I decided to continue to push through. So that is a bit of a downfall. I do kind of think, why would you be reading Midnight Sun if you don't know what's going to happen? Like, if you've never read Twilight, why read Midnight Sun? But then also, I read like a book series where I read the guy's perspective first, so I can't really judge. But it was only that I knew that the story was about to kick up that I kept reading it. Otherwise, I probably would have put it down. And then it got so much better as well. I was enjoying, for the majority of it, the slow in the middle, but I knew it was going to pick up, and then it did at like the final action-y sequence, and that was really good. It was really interesting getting, again, Edward's perspective, obviously, because that's what the book is, and getting the extra details, because a lot of, obviously, the Twilight is from Bella's point of view, and then there is a big portion towards the end where she's knocked out and you don't get to see it. But even just all, like, there's like this crazy car chase scene, or not chase scene, but driving in it, and that was really interesting. And I just had a really good time with the action-y bits at the end, so it made it kind of worthwhile for me to have kept reading. After that, it was a little bit slow again because we were back in the town and the romance. It wasn't as gripping from there, and I think I was just pretty done by this point because it was a really big book. So I feel like we could have, like, it could have been succincter. I would have enjoyed it more personally, but it was still worthwhile, and I still had a good time reading it and enjoying the nostalgia of it. I then decided to jump onto another big book, which is part 2 of A Storm of Swords, Blood and Gold, which I just realised I wrote the wrong thing when I just put up my last video, because I wrote that it was part 1 instead of part 2. Anyways, you guys don't need to know about that. I DNF'd Blood and Gold last year or the year before because I was in a bit of a slump. It wasn't so much this book's fault, but I knew that I needed to just stop, retrain my brain that reading isn't boring. And like, these are hard books. Like A Song of Ice and Fire, it is epic fantasy, so it's not necessarily the easiest thing to get through, though the more I read of epic fantasy, the better like my level gets, which makes sense, you improve anything, and the more I tend to enjoy it. I had a really great time with this book, really great time. So again, I think my reading level is improved. I wonder whether probably George R.R. Martin's writing has also improved. I don't know. There's not much I can say about this book because it'd be massive spoilers for anybody, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I don't want spoilers either. Please don't do that to me. But I had such a good time. I gave it 4.25 stars. I can't wait to read the next book. I do love that you can get some of these books in parts. I would love to read all of them in parts. But honestly, as soon as I finished that volume, I would have kept reading the next one. Except I didn't own it, and that's generally not the best thing to do for me. It's very rare that I will marathon series because I like to have a break, but the fact that I was so willing to jump into the next book because I was having such a good time with this one, and it ended before I thought that I was going to because I didn't realize that there was a character appendix at the back. It was just, I had a great time. It was a lot of fun. After that, I then read my first book that I DNF'd in this wrap up, or for the year as well. I don't know if I've DNF'd a book this year, but that was Intertwined by Gena Showalter, which is the book 1 in the Intertwined series. So not something that I would normally pick up myself, but I was loaned what I didn't realize was, but as I did more research, I was loaned the 3rd book in the trilogy and decided to purchase the first one secondhand, try and have a read through. But it is paranormal romance, a genre that I'm enjoying. I want to say, I don't really know how I feel about, like, I wanted to say less and less the older I get, but I think the only paranormal romance I've really read is Sookie Stackhouse's, and I've always enjoyed those. So I wonder whether paranormal romance is maybe not the genre for me at all. Like, I've never liked it because I don't think I've actually read a lot of paranormal romance. I just feel like I have, but I think I'm just confusing it with YA romance. I started this one and I was going into it with my mind open. I was like thinking, don't get annoyed. You know that it's probably not going to be exactly for you, but just see if you can go in and enjoy the romance. It did feel like something different because Intertwined is actually from the point of view of a guy, not a girl. We do get into the girl's point of view, but on the blurb on the back it's sold as the guy's point of view, and he actually has 5 different personalities living inside his head. I don't really know why because we haven't got up to that point yet, but that was, yeah, it was just something interesting and different. It wasn't the standard, and this is where I'm comparing again to, I don't know, I keep comparing it to like the YA, like the Twilights and all that I read a lot of, and the Vampire Academy and stuff like that, where it was like girl meets mysterious boy who has powers. But I think this is actually paranormal romance. I don't think this way. So I don't know if it's unique to the genre, but it felt pretty unique to me because it was boy instead of girl moves to new town and meets mysterious boy. It was boys ended up in this town. And that was like, there's nothing necessarily wrong with her writing. I just got annoyed at an interaction. Like, I was kind of about 20 or so pages in, 20, 30, I don't know, it could be anywhere between 20 and 60 pages. I feel like not 60 though, not that many. But I was in this book not very far at all. And I was like trying to keep my open mind. This is all good, you know, it's fine. Try and enjoy it just for the fun of it. And the interaction between the female love interest and her best friend was just like, I don't need to be reading this. I don't. You come say hi, Coop. Hi. Hey. You're a little sweetie. It was just something that I just couldn't get past, even though we've got the guy's point of view, which it points from my perspective being original. The female is the shyer, like less boisterous woman who has the best friend who is like really brazen, sleeps with all the guys, and just says whatever she wants. And it just really drove me nuts because I was like sick of this best friend dynamic. And then the main chick, she has a boyfriend, and the guy who also has the POV comes up to her and is wanting to chat to her because of, you know, plot reasons, and he wants to get her number, and she clearly says no, and we know she has a boyfriend, and she leaves, and the best friend happens to stay for another 5 seconds with the guy and gives her number to this random dude that we have never met before. We don't know him. He looks disheveled and everything like this. Her best friend said no, and it was quite clear that I have a boyfriend who I think the boyfriend is cheating with the best friend because of horribly obvious writing in the book that the female doesn't see. But she's clearly said no, and the best friend is like, oh, you have it anyways. Like, to this random dude that she doesn't know. And I just went, it was lovely that someone borrowed me the third book in the trilogy. You don't know, it could have been good. I gave it a chance. It's not for me. There's just, it's just not for me. And that's just the way it goes. I feel a lot of guilt sometimes DNFing things that are either the book or related to the book that I've been borrowed. But the fact of the matter is, some things are just not for you, and there's nothing you can do about it, and that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with it. So that one, I'm just sending it away, and I'm gonna give back the third book in the trilogy that I was borrowed, and just go, it just wasn't gelling with me, and that's fine. And then the final book that I want to talk about is the middle grade that I finished, which is The Bad Beginning, book 1 in the series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. This is a very popular middle grade series about the Baudelaire children, I think is how you spell it. There was a movie made, and now there's a Netflix TV show. But if you haven't heard about them, the basic premise is there's these 3 siblings who become orphaned at the start of the book, and the only person that they can move in with, apparently, is this weird relative that they've never met before, but who swears is their relative, called Count Olaf, and he ends up being one of the worst people that you could live with ever. This book was really short. I think I underestimated how small it is. It's 176 pages, and the margins are also really giant as well, so there's not a lot of text in each pages. It was just a bit of fun. I'm probably going to continue with this series, but not urgently. I don't know when. I feel like I would have to be in the mood, and then I would pick it up. I think it'd be a great series for middle grade, and I'm interested to see as well when I read past the bit that the movie that I've seen has filmed, which is probably not going to happen for another couple of books because they sort of smushed the first, I think, 3 books into like the one movie and moved things around in a different order since I've now read this first book. I'm not super dying to read it, but I do want to find out what this whole like eye association is. Like that interests me. That is why I'm reading this series, because I watched the movie and they never made any more, and I really wanted to know what the whole go was with this eye fire investigation club or whatever. I think that was really interesting. It's a goofy book. The kids get into shenanigans that the Count Olaf put them in, and they find a way to solve them each time, which is really good, but there's not a lot of substance there for me that I could easily tell for me and myself. So that was fine. I don't actually have a rating for that one, but I don't know what I would rate it considering that it's not made for me. I'm not the middle grade audience. That is it for all the books that I read in March and April. And now to give you guys a really quick life update. If you're not here for that, then see you later. Thanks for watching. But today, as I'm filming, I am 38 weeks pregnant, which is crazy. I really hope that I get this video edited and put up before the baby's born, but it could be anywhere between the next 2 weeks, obviously 2 weeks from like, oh well, I'm 38 in 2 days or whatever, but when I'm 40 weeks that'll be my due date, and we'll see whether I go over being a first time mum, but also who can really tell? There's not like proper statistics of that, but we'll see. And I haven't pre-filmed anything at all. I'm not super one for pre-filming a lot, so there will probably be a bit of a dip in my channel. So far since I've left work, because I was really struggling earlier this year before I'd finished up work, and I was only putting out like one video a month, if that. But since I finished up work and I've been at home for like this past month, and it'll end up being like 6 weeks until my due date that I've been home from work without baby being here, we'll see. I have come back to one video a week, so you guys have seen me regularly. It's been lovely hanging out again, but I think I will probably have a break. I like sleep, and I know that I'm not really going to get a lot of sleep with a newborn, so I will see how it goes. I hope I'm still reading. I've ordered a book in the mail that I'm really excited about getting, that I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? But life has to go on. Like, I question my judgment in ordering an 800-page book to start when the baby could be coming like at any stage, but then also it could be late, so I could be finished. I don't know. Anyways, it's amazing. It's interesting how like people are being in my like personal life are being really helpful about, I don't know, just I'm trying to think how to phrase what I'm thinking. It's like some people are sort of almost expecting that my life is on hold right now while I'm waiting for the baby, and in some ways I am, but also I'm kind of in the mindset that I just want to keep planning and doing things, and then I might have to cancel when it arrives. Obviously to a point where in Australia at least they don't tend to let you go over like a week and a half, is about like when they will induce you then and get the baby out. So there will come a point where yes, there will be baby here, but at the moment, because you can never really tell when, I don't want to kind of be in limbo for 2 weeks, so I'm just sort of, or longer, 3 weeks maybe, I'm just living my life and then I will see. But this is probably, yeah, the last time maybe in a while that I will talk to you guys. I don't know how I'm gonna be feeling, but I do want to keep doing booktube. I just got to get my life back in order. I've got to get myself a bit more into a rhythm. I don't want to say routine, because I hate the word routine, and I hate, like, I don't know, it is just really interesting talking to people, because I think a lot of the time I'm really worried about like the first 2 weeks with a newborn, like I'm planning to breastfeed, so that's going to be really intense to begin with, since I've been learning more about cluster feeding and how newborns want to be fed every, like, anywhere between 1 to 4 hours depending on your baby. And whenever I talk to people, I feel like a lot of like grown-ups, I say grown-ups, I feel like a lot of middle-aged people who have me-aged people as their kids now have forgotten this, or there's like a mistranslation when I'm talking to them, because I'm literally only thinking about those first 2 weeks to a month where the baby will be feeding all the time, and everyone's like, just get him into a routine, and I'm like, yeah, it might, like, there's not really a routine at this point. Like, I have feed on demand, so that'll bring my milk in, and like the baby will gain weight, and then we'll see. But I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect when I talk to them, and it's interesting. It is. I don't know what else I just don't know what it's going to be like, and I'm okay with that, and I don't want to be forced into routines that I don't want and all that kind of thing. So, and I don't have to be, like, I get in my head with all this kind of stuff, because I, like, you know, it's nice when people give you advice, but it also can be a bit overwhelming, and people aren't always great at the way they deliver it to you, so it doesn't always feel like take it or leave it. But obviously every kind of advice is take it or leave it. So I will finish this now because I've been chatting to you guys about this for too long. I'll see if I can stand up and give you a little bumpy. Oh, I'm sitting on the ground, which is probably not the wisest. Here is the bumps. We've got some really beautiful maternity photos taken, so I'll insert a picture of one of those. Apparently I am carrying smaller, so everybody keeps telling me, which just drives me bloody bonkers as well, because people and their opinions, and I don't want to hear that as a first time mom, and I just, you know, you're not a doctor. My doctor is saying that I'm measuring fine. I don't need you to tell me that I look smaller than I am. I have one lady that I barely even remember her to call her an acquaintance, and she was like, oh, you're starting to pop out, and this is when I was like 37 weeks, and I'm like, I'm about to have the baby actually. So just society and well-meaning people, but frustrating at the same time when that's all you're hearing. So we shall go now, me and Coops, but we will be back at some stage. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys sometime soon. Bye!